Thank you all for the warm reception. We want to first thank our sister who's been emceeing. Alicia, give her a hand. Doing such a great job. I always like to point out the sisters who are on the program. They probably do most of the work. The men shine. So we want to make sure. I'd like to also acknowledge the elected officials who are here. If you'd like to stand and wave and say hi to your constituents. There we have some in the back, some at the table. Senator Williams, I've had a chance to speak with him. We have labor leaders in the House. Where are our labor leaders? Some of my favorite folks. Clergy, we have clergy in the House. Stand, clergy. And all of our clergy, please stand. Okay. Remain standing. Just want to make sure we acknowledge everyone. Thank you. Remain standing. Our clergy. Isn't this what they do to y'all? Go to church. Every time you try to sit down, remain standing. So I got the gavel today. Remain standing. You may be seated. You heard a gracious introduction to one of my mentors. For many years, I admired afar the work of Richard Womack Sr. You all should never take him for granted. His work throughout the country has benefited working families and African Americans for nearly, if more than 50 years. He rose to the rank of perhaps one of the highest ranking labor leaders in the history of our country, serving as one of the top assistants to the national president of the international president of the AFL-CIO, President Sweeney, for many years. That's a lot of influence. Additionally, as you've heard him say, that he has served on the national board of the NAACP and in every other national capacity, helping elected officials throughout the country. So I'm honored that he even knows as much about me or took time. We've known each other for nearly 20 years, even before television. I was running up behind him, as I did all the other national leaders and local leaders who are trying to make change in our community. And so I'm very grateful that to have been one of his students and continue to be so, because in a real way, it's your generation and his generation that have paved the way for us to be able to take the mantle of leadership. You know, I'm not confused. I know how I got here. Richard Womack's not confused. He knows how he got here. It's the sweat, blood, and tears of the previous generation that helped us achieve this. So I thank you for your support and your work and your sacrifices throughout the years. And I also thank you all for keeping me on television for 17 years. You know, I like the better reference to he's the longest serving African American male in the history of television. I like that better than Judge Judy. Or maybe even Oprah. She's the #1 African American longest serving person of color on television in history. In fact, I believe she's the longest running television show ever. So we thank God for you all who have supported me and the others who look like you on television. Thank you. Thank you. You know, some of you all who watch the show, I know that when I go out, they say, where do you get those crazy people from? Is that real? Well, yes, it is real. Those cases are real. We get them from small claim courts from around the country. Our researchers go and pull the cases, and if they look interesting, they may have a little entertainment value, they'll call them and ask if they want to remove it from their local court and bring it to us as arbitrators. And so the folks are real, the cases are real. And as you just heard, Mr. Womack, I was elected as a real judge and have been serving now as an arbitrating judge. And Judge Davis can share with you more information about that. And he's a great judge, and I hope you all appreciate Judge Davis. Give him a hand. And as you've heard, I'm here today for my friend of 20 years, as I say, prior to television, whom has been in the trenches, helping to make a difference in our community, helping to make a difference in working class communities, both here and throughout the country. My work primarily has been with him throughout the country. And then we came here to the metropolitan Philadelphia area and worked with the Laborers Union to hold a major youth and education expo where we had over 3,000 people come. The Laborers Union, led by Brother Staten at that time, I believe, joined with us, brought on all the elected officials, the mayor of Philadelphia, some in the legislature joined us, the school board members, the head of the school district, and more importantly, over 3,000 parents and young people came together to try and find some solutions to the challenges in education and the challenges that our young people face today. And that was at the mention of me wanting to do it, to 10 weeks later, Brother Womack helping to get all the support to pull it off. So he's been there for me. He's been there for you. And so we are here for him today. And we thank God for him. Give him another big hand, Brother Richard Womack. That's why I'm here. And I will continue to be here. And we ask that you continue the progress that's been made by he and so many others. We ask that you continue the progress that many of you have created. There has been much progress. Some will argue that there hasn't because they see some of the same challenges of the past continue today. But don't let anyone tell you that we as a people have not made any progress and break your spirit and keep you from going to the polls because you think it won't matter. Not only do some in power not want us to vote and thereby try and dampen our spirits, many, Senator, as you say, and as you know, create barriers to our voting opportunities. They create obstacles, try and prohibit us from early voting, try and require driver's license in order to vote. Many of our seniors, 90 years old, haven't seen a driver's license in 20. You're talking about they need a driver's license to vote. I don't know where my Social Security card is. I do know where my driver's license is because I still drive. But were you to tell me I need a Social Security vote, I perhaps would not be able to vote. College students having residency in their hometowns or residency in their college towns, but their driver's license is at their hometown, unable to vote. So there's a lot of folks that prefer you not vote. And so they will dampen your spirit. They will keep you home. That's why we have the 20% voter turnout throughout the country in many of our communities that causes us to lose the power that we might otherwise have to change our conditions. So don't you let them stop our progress, because there's been much. You say, well, Judge, what progress has there been? Well, let's just start with this one easy phrase. We have won everything that we have fought for. Everything. When I say we, I'm talking to African American voters here, because you all need to be motivated, because you all are voting at 20% capacity, and the other communities are voting at 30 and 40%. There's nothing racial about that. It's about you all and us using the power that we have to overcome some of the challenges in our community. It is a known fact that our folks suffer disproportionately from poverty, from injustice, from racism. And so for us to be afraid to speak to that is an injustice and a disservice to ourselves. So I don't want folks to run out here and say, well, Judge Mathis, he's talking that black talk. And they talk why black folks don't come out to vote and the civil rights. And yes, I'm talking civil rights. Yes, I'm talking black vote. Yes, I'm talking Black Lives Matter. Yes, I'm talking empowerment, talking all of that. Because that's what put me here. If you all had not fought those fights, I wouldn't be here. And as I said, I'm not confused. And as I once again will reiterate, we have won everything we have fought for. We fought for emancipation and we won. We fought for desegregation and we won. We fought for civil rights and we won. We fought for voting rights and we won the presidency. Now we must continue to fight for progress. And we must continue to maintain the progress that we have gained. And for us to suggest that we no longer are doing the work that our predecessors would have us to do, just open your eyes and look around at some of the young people here in Darby County and in Delaware County and the other parts of metropolitan Philadelphia, and you'll know that you're wrong. Look at Judge Davis, a young man, representing you all, representing equal justice. Brother Womack, representing Darby Township Commission. Brother Womack, we're going to have him representing very soon the county council. Young men carrying on the work. And so I can tell you the best way for us to continue making this progress is to vote November 3rd. You know, we hear so much about the uprising in Ferguson, the violence that followed, the unlawful, in my opinion, certainly the excessive force used to kill the young man Michael Brown, the uprising that followed as a part of the protest, the violence that we saw. It wasn't necessarily because of the killing of the young man. That may have deserved a march, or it may have resulted in a march and in a protest, but the violence, the rage, the pent-up anger, it wasn't just about that incident. It was about the injustice these folks in Ferguson had suffered from for years. The Justice Department investigation disclosed that they had been ticketed as part of the police policy at a higher proportion in order to meet the quotas to help finance the city's budget. We found that certainly, as we know throughout the country, racial profiling in the driving and the stops of African Americans was nearly 10 times that of non-African Americans. And we found incredible poverty in contrast to the other towns in that county. But you know, what stood out the most was this was and is a town made up of 70% black folks with 0 African Americans on the city council. Never had a black mayor, never had a black police chief, never had a black prosecutor. Yet, they never had over 10% vote either. So, power is not given to you because you are so well liked. They said, well, let me just hand over everything to you. We like you. No, you have to take it. You have to take it. And if you're living in a county that has 0 African Americans that represent you on the county council, you have 0 who represent the political party in which you are associated with. And if you're Democrats, well, you're not represented on the county council because there's 0 county council Democrats. Wow. That's right. Brother Womack will be the only and the first when we get him elected. And so, the best way, once again, to change the conditions in your community is to vote. The county council, doing my research, I recognize that they control the justice system. Come on now. The very thing that is most prominent in our news across the country now. You all have 0 input and influence. Right here, this isn't not Ferguson, not down in Florida, the country town in Florida where they killed Trayvon Martin. Not some of the other little country towns where you all sophisticated northerners call them backwards. We wouldn't allow that up here. Oh, we fought too long. We got the labor union. We had Malcolm X. We had this and that. Oh, they wouldn't do that in Philadelphia area. They wouldn't do that in Darby County. They wouldn't do that. You let them stop and shoot one of us. I'm going to leave that alone. I want my brother to get elected. But if you want change and you want power to make a difference in your community, you have to take it. If you want your roads and your community to be developed, you have to fight for it. I have a 40-year history in this area. My aunts, Holbrook and then Vivian Carr, lived and raised their children in Chester. So I've been coming back and forth from Chester for 40 years, and I've seen the change. The decline. I'll be very honest. I've seen the decline. I've seen the removal of the resources from Darby County, from Darby and Darby Township, certain parts, and Chester. And I've seen the enhancement of other parts of the immediate community. Same thing happened in Detroit. Remove the resources. We allowed the education system to flounder. Then we're surprised after taking the jobs, quality education, opportunity, replacing them with guns and drugs so our children can kill themselves with. And then those left standing, you subject them to a prison industrial complex, a justice system ran by never mind. And then you see the decline in your community. And it's not 4 or 5 people sitting up in a room conspiring. That's what folks say. It's a conspiracy to kill the black man. It's a conspiracy. No, it's a power. Folks want to take power to make a difference in their community. I want to empower my family first, my relatives first, my community first, my nation first, then the rest of the world. I'm a good family man, at least I try to be. I'm a good father. My wife said I ain't worth a devil. My kids say I'm a great dad. As you heard in my family, all throughout the country, I support my family. I just moved Sister Vivian Carr, Aunt Vivian, to Florida, where it would be a little easier on her. Because last I was here, leaving out of her house, maybe last year, young men on the porch, young street kids, street guys, wasn't quite kids. I shook their hand. Judge, we love you. Oh, man, I love y'all too. And that's why I'm not ashamed when folks talk about my background. That's inspirational for some of these young folks. And that's why they need to hear that, because they relate to me and they'll listen to me. And so they embrace me. Brother Judge, we love you, man. Man, we happy for you, such and such. 6 weeks later, my aunt called me. Said, a young man, you shook his hand and you hugged him on the porch, he was killed. Jesus. 4 months later, Gregory, you know, out front yesterday, they killed a young man right in front of my face on the street. I said, well, Auntie, it's time to move. I'm getting you out of there. If I have to she didn't want to leave. She's never wanted to leave. She's up in age. I've been trying to get her to move to Florida with the other children. Some of her children have moved there. She didn't want to leave. I said, well, this time, you don't have to leave, but you won't have any place to sit, because I'm bringing the U-Haul and I'm going to load that truck up and we're coming with or without you. So I love my family. And then I love my community. You've heard of the community work. You've heard the community work I do. It doesn't have anything to do with not liking this race or not liking that race. It has something to do with loving my family, my community. I love America. And I love the world. But love starts here and moves outward. And so I ask that you begin and continue to love yourselves, love your family, love your community. And if you love your family and you love your community, you'll be active in your community. And on November 3rd, you'll bring souls to the polls. This is Sunday. This is Sunday, a day that the Lord has made. You all come from church. So I hope you got a good sermon today. And I hope you're convinced to bring the souls to the polls. We're going to have transportation at several of the churches who are going to participate. We were at Bethany, I believe Bethany, is that they're going to have a location there for pickup and for volunteers who want to work. Bethany, by the way, was the home church of my Aunt Vivian in Holbrook. So I was very fulfilling time to be there. Even get some of these young folks, the young men that you know may not be active at all. I don't think you have to be registered to work the polls. It may be too late to register them. I think they had to register October 3rd. But you let them know if y'all down with Judge Mathis, you got to get out there and work with Womack because that's his man. Tell them to get out and volunteer. Tell them to show up at Bethany, 8 a.m. 8 a.m. on November the 3rd, and they'll get a couple of dollars in their pocket to go out and work the polls. And we want those young men, as I close, we want to take them off the streets. We want to keep them out of the criminal justice system. We want to convince them that black lives matter. We have to convince ourselves before we fuss at other folks. Convince them. Convince them that they, as I close on this Sunday evening, that they have the same situation that Jesus had. And they have the ability to change their circumstance, as Jesus did. He was born poor. He was born homeless in a manger. Folks oppressed his community. The government had their foot on his back. Didn't have the right to vote. Folks gossiped and wasn't sure about who his father was. Same situation. He could have been on the corner. Oh, my mama, teenage mama, she didn't know about, I'm not sure who my daddy was, and I don't have the right to vote. The government has his foot on my back. I was born in the projects of the manger, and I was such and such. Give me a swig of that wine. But Pastor, he didn't do that. He said, I am the Son of God, and I've came to change my condition and the condition of this world. And so we must tell all of our young men and women who are struggling in the ghettos of America, in the prisons of America, looking for hope and inspiration. Tell them the story of Jesus, not the old weak milquetoast Jesus. We've heard enough about that. We know he was humble and withdrawn. But he raised hell when he had to. He wasn't too humble when he turned them tables over in the temple. And so we must teach them that they too are sons and daughters of God. They may not be divine, but they have the power to change their condition and the condition of their communities. Thank you all. November 3rd, take the souls to the polls for my dear friend, Richard Womack. Thank you, and God bless you all.